Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Keep Bright On podcast. As ever, I'm joined by my co-host and colleague, Brian Dick, to discuss all things Birmingham City. We are going to come straight on to the big talking point this week. Obviously, the news that Tony Mowbray will be stepping aside from Birmingham City duties for the foreseeable after a medical diagnosis. We'll start with that shortly. We're also going to be talking about the big win over Sunderland on Saturday, before moving on to questions and takes from supporters. Obviously, there's going to be a Mowbray theme to those questions and takes as well. So, Brian, firstly, just for those, that haven't read the statement, I can't imagine there aren't many at this point, but just talk us through the announcement yesterday and what it means to Blues.
So, it came a Monday morning, just a couple of days after what had been a fantastic weekend and a second victory in a few days for Mowbray over another of his former clubs. It came like something of a bolt out of the blue. And the club statement said that, quoted Mowbray as saying, following my recent LMA health assessment, I've received a medical diagnosis that will require me to have treatment. Undergoing treatment will necessitate that I temporarily step away from the technical area as manager of Birmingham City. Until I return, my assistant manager, Mark Venus, will take temporary charge of the team, supported, as we know, by Ashley Cole, Pete Shuttleworth and Mike Taylor. And he does say, I will continue to provide advice and counsel while undergoing treatment. That's the top and bottom of it. And I know this story isn't about me, but my first reaction was, why can't we have nice things? Everything seemed to be going so well after the Sunderland game, but then football pales into insignificance, doesn't it? When you hear about someone's illness. So I think it's important to say, Alex, isn't it? We both want to make this absolutely clear that we don't have any more information other than the club statement. And if we did have that information, it would be private medical information. And I don't think either of us would have any interest in just putting that into the public domain.
Yeah, 100%. We should probably really talk about the impact that Mowbray has made in his short time as Birmingham City manager. And hopefully that obviously won't be affected by this slight change. When you look at it on the face of it, Brian, 8 games, 4 wins, 1 draw, 3 defeats in all competitions, 10 points from his 6 league games in charge. After the game against Sunderland, I put a little tweet out, basically in a comparison with Wayne Rooney's games, in that, Rooney got 10 points from 15 games in charge. So, Blues are on a nice track under Mowbray. Results have obviously been helped by those back-to-back wins against Blackburn and Sunderland. But in those 2 games, we saw real positive signs, didn't we?
We did, even in some of the defeats, actually, Alex, to be fair. The first half of the cup match against Leicester, the first 20 minutes against Sheffield Wednesday, when the 2 teams looked as though they were leagues apart. In most games, I would say, yes, I can see a coherent Birmingham City that Tony Mowbray has just come in and put together almost on the hoof. It's been really impressive. But yeah, obviously it is a results game, and those two victories against Blackburn and Sunderland, notwithstanding the emotional ties that Mowbray would have felt, they came at a really good time, because the 2 of the bottom 3 feel like they've got moving a little bit, don't they? What they've done is Blues have got a difficult run of fixtures now. They've kept the wolf from the door from that point of view, and they've dragged a lot of other clubs down there. And Blues now only need, it's, I would say, a point a game to get to sort of 52 points and stay in the league now. So hopefully the bulk of the back's been broken of the bulk of the work, hasn't it? But what would you say has been, what have you enjoyed most about, or been impressed most about the Mowbray makeover so far?
The style, and we've spoken about it a couple of times, but when we know that Blues have wanted to change style from when they parted ways with John Eustace back in October, but there's been clear and concise messages being put across to the players. There's been an obvious identity in the way that Blues have played in the 8 games under Mowbray. They've not wavered from that. They've played out from the back when they can. He has stressed that he doesn't always want them to play out from the back. It's also about decision making, which they never quite grasped in those Rooney games. I think one example of that Mowbray wasn't pleased with against Sunderland was the goal that Sunderland scored in that Peck played a blind pass across his own defensive line to Mark Roberts, and Roberts was on his heels a little bit, but Jack Clark jumped in, intercepted, and raced away to score their goal. And I think there was another example of Peck doing that earlier in that game, and he almost got caught out. But Blues obviously didn't learn that lesson and paid the price for it. Blues are going to get better at playing out from the back. They're going to be in better positions. You made a great point actually on the last podcast about Mowbray came in straight away and recognised that to play that way, you need good midfield players who are comfortable taking the ball from the defenders. And in Peck and Andre Dazelle particularly, they've got two outstanding ball-playing midfield players. So that's what's most impressed me. Results as well have been good. If you look at it, 10 points from 6 games. I know it's been really helped by the last week, but 10 points from 6 games over the course of a season probably has you in that picture for 6th place. I know there are a lot of teams in the Championship who challenge for 6th. Mowbray made a point actually about his Sunderland team because they finished 6th last year, in that you win enough games in the Championship to get yourself in contention, and then when the wheel stops, Sunderland were in 6th place last season, whereas if it had gone on for a week or two more, they might have been 8th or 9th. So it's been a really, really impressive first 6 weeks in charge, and hopefully that can continue with Mark Venus in charge. And we should probably speak about him as well, Brian. Do you want to run us down a little bit of the flavour we've got from Mowbray about Venus in his first month or so in the job?
I think Mark Venus's biggest fan might not even be in Mark Venus's own family. Tony Mowbray is a lover of Mark Venus. In his first press conference, his unveiling press conference, he was asked about his backroom team, and he said the one guy I'm bringing in is Mark Venus, and he referred to him as a genius, didn't he? In terms of his. If I remember rightly, I think it was as much about his tactical analysis and awareness and the preparation of game plans. Have I remembered that right?
Yeah, I think
context. Yeah,
and he's intelligent in getting messages across, I think, as well. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So you listen. Venus has been with Mowbray at his. He was at Sunderland, wasn't he? He's been with him at Coventry as well. So it's important to have a lieutenant that you can trust, and he clearly does that. Now, I don't think necessarily we're going to be getting rhyming couplets and after dinner speeches from Venus in the press conferences. But if that there's no reason to think that competency and that genius streak, if you want to call it that, that Venus has, there's no reason to believe that will disappear. And he'll still be putting together the Blues game plans. I suppose uncomfortably for him, he might be the one with the camera in his face before and after games. But in terms of the preparation, hopefully there won't be too much different there. And listen, I guess what everyone will miss in this short period will be Mowbray's personality, won't they? I think he's charmed the birds from the trees, hasn't he? In his time at Blues so far, it's very difficult for us to be critical of him, or as pressmen. Although we do need to retain that level of objectivity. Certainly, he's very well liked around the training centre, isn't he? And the stadium. He just conducts himself in a really, really great way as a good human being, and I'm starting to sound like him now. And that will be missed. But I'm cautiously optimistic that the Venus will be able to keep the show on the road for what is hopefully a few weeks.
Yeah, there's a warmth about Mowbray, isn't there? And you'd hope that the players can almost be galvanised by this to kind of maintain results and maintain performance levels, because they've set their own standards quite high over the last 6 weeks. So hopefully they can continue to live up to that.
Sorry, just to add to that, it's not like, there's another manager that's gone and he's not coming back. These players will still have to impress Tony Mowbray, won't they? If they want to stay at the club beyond the summer. So, it's not we're not in a vacuum, So, just thought that was worth throwing in. Sorry.
No, that's a very good point. We're not going to talk about the game on Saturday because it feels like so long ago now. But we do want to talk about the occasion. A full house at St Andrews, the first time this season, the first time in almost 5 years that it's been a sellout. Obviously, that was largely caused by the stand closures beforehand. But 27,449 people there inside St Andrews, and it was an absolutely brilliant occasion. 3 points to celebrate as well. The scenes after the Jordan James goal and after the Koji Miyoshi goal were brilliant to watch. I think they call that limbs, Brian. Just talk to us about the occasion and what it means going forward, and how important is it that we get more days like this?
I mean, it's vital. Tom Wagner played the card. I don't think he can play this card too many times, can he? The Your Club Needs You card. He gave people, it was about a month's notice to say that we want to sell out Sunderland, and the sort of the ticket schemes went along with that as well, and that they helped create that. So Tom Wagner can't play that card too many times, but the response from the Birmingham City fans was outstanding. There was a crackle, wasn't there, before the game? It just felt like something was happening, and I think you'll be better placed to talk about it than I will. But my biggest takeaway was when the goals went in front of the safe standing area at the bottom of the Tilton. In recent years, there's been no one there. In recent weeks, it's been relatively sparsely populated. But to see that as a breathing, heaving, living mass for JJ and Miyoshi to celebrate in front of, that's spine tingling to me. So it felt like St Andrew's heart was beating strong again, didn't it?
I hate to use cliches, but it did feel like the ball was being sucked towards that stand in the second half, particularly when you watch the first goal back. I mean, there were so many kind of blocks and tackles, but the ball just kept going towards the goal and getting closer and closer till eventually Jordan James put it in. It was a really special atmosphere, and it showed the best of St Andrews, didn't it? I think Miyoshi in the interview I did with him afterwards said that he sensed that some of the Sunderland players, were fearing the atmosphere as it got louder and louder, and that's what a team, I suppose, needs more of. You need to have that backing every week, and it's very difficult because we're going to come on to some of the issues later in the podcast. It's very difficult to have that level of support each week, but like you say, and Tom Wagner can only use that card, once, maybe twice. He can't keep using it. So there are going to have to be long-term initiatives put in place to make sure that, there are bigger crowds. And I think the key thing I've noticed from speaking to fans, and we did a survey as well on our website recently, is that the main thing that's been keeping them away in recent years is results. So, they've improved a little bit under Mowbray. They can keep improving. And Mowbray talks about having a team that can compete at the top end of this league next season. Then, maybe the people will come back in their droves.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to the pandemic season under Aita Karanka, played out terrible football, played out in a fearful way. I thought Karanka's team were always fearful and frightened of the opposition in front of no supporters in empty stadiums, and then you transpose onto that what Saturday was. And it is almost like a different planet, and it was reminiscent, not identical for me, but reminiscent of some of the early Premiership seasons when St Andrews was actually worth, a goal start or a point, or or a few points over the season, or just that psychological edge. And I spoke to people after that game as well, and they were just so enthused to see their club, brought back to life, almost like I use this phrase quite a bit, like a defibrillator had sort of jolted them back into life again. So yeah, it was a great occasion, it really was. one that we've not seen for many, many years.
Now for the downside, Brian. I was.
Could you not get a pie in the press room, Alex? Is that the problem?
No, the press food is actually really nice. Again, it's a nice curry. Press food at St Andrews has been top notch this season, and that is, to be fair, my main thing that I enjoy. So yeah, don't get me started on Blackburn Rovers again. Okay, what I was going to say is for all the positives, that there are obviously downsides to St Andrews when it's so full. Not just when it's so full, because it was like this a little bit before Christmas as well. But the traffic, Brian, getting away from St Andrews, I think that's what's come through most from the people I've spoken to. It is pretty horrendous, especially down Garrison Lane. I was speaking to a guy called Alan who runs the press room, and I was asking him if he wanted me to go home because I was the last person in there, but he said there's no point because we can't get down Garrison Lane because it's an hour traffic to the roundabout anyway. So I waited in there till 7:30 before leaving, and went to up the road, and there was traffic right the way down to Garrison Lane. There was traffic going up the other way. So it was about an hour going down to the roundabout, so I had to eventually go the other way and try and wriggle my way through that way. But it's a problem. It's not a new problem. The owners are well aware of it, and I believe they have had meetings about it, kind of trying to work with the local authorities to make it a little bit more smooth for fans getting away from the games. But yeah, because I think that the location is the issue, and it has always been the issue. Blues aren't moving away from St Andrews anytime soon, so that needs to be sorted, doesn't it?
It does. It's difficult to know what the solution is. I think potentially people got quite used to driving and finding somewhere to park when the attendances weren't so big, and now there's more interest. As you say, the infrastructure just isn't there to support that number of cars. But I'm glad it's not for me to find the solution, because I think it's a really difficult one. It points away from the club's future lying away from St Andrews, doesn't it? Life and society and transport modes have changed since, was it 1905 or 1906 when Blues moved to that site, they absolutely need to be looking for a different option, and they are. I've read a piece that you've just written, quoting Gary Cook from an interview you did with him. Was it around Christmas time or just after Christmas?
Just before Christmas.
Yeah, and he when you pick through all of his quotes and isolate the really salient ones, he makes those points about St Andrews belonging to sort of a bygone era, doesn't he? And Knighthead are clearly all too aware. If they want this sort of multi-use arena that's maybe going to have 2 or 3 events on a week or something like that, then it's not going to be at St Andrews. But in the short term, there are improvements that can be made to the supporter experience, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. Going back to the car thing, just before we come on to that, the 2/3 of Blues fans that we polled in a poll on our website actually drive to games rather than use public transport. I think that's a big one. It's probably, because there's not really an adequate public transport system getting you straight directly to St Andrews. Baldersley Green is obviously the nearest train station, but I'm told by some fans that needs some maintenance work to get it up to speed to cope with Saturday's demand. So yeah, that's the biggest issue for me. I think there needs to be a good public transport system ferrying fans to and from the city centre that makes it easy for them, so not everyone has to drive and all converge on St Andrews at the same time. Until that's in place, I think there's always going to be some traffic issues around the ground. With regards to fan experience, they are doing a lot of things, and I'm really pleased that the club have obviously set up the official supporters group and are working with some of the fans so that people are able to get their grievances and opinions across to people that matter at the club that can make this change. Even from Saturday's game, I spoke to Suki from the Punjabi Blues group earlier, and he was telling me about, things in the toilets were an issue for some fans. There wasn't adequate one-way system in some of the men's toilets, some of the bins in the Gilmerick, and a few other things. Obviously, the main thing coming back was about the traffic and getting away from the match post-match. But it's good that people can now sit down with the owners, the powers that be, whether it's Jeremy Dale, Gary Cook, and get these messages across to them, and hopefully change can happen. It does seem like they are willing to make those changes. There's been an issue with the tannoy system, for example, and they are working to change that in time for next season. Simon Sturridge was the guest and went on the pitch on Saturday, and you couldn't really, I was sitting quite far back in the stand, and you couldn't really tell what he was saying in some of his answers. That's obviously a tannoy fault. So yeah, they're obviously going to work to get that sorted. To be fair to United, I made reference to it in the piece earlier, but with the issues with St Andrews since they took over, they have worked very hard and promptly to change things and make it better.
Yeah, I mean, just like the team, the stadium's lacked investment for years and years and years, hasn't it? And you're not going to put it all right in what are they now? Are they 7 months into their ownership of the club. What is the big difference is they are listening, and Blues fans are making these points to open ears as opposed to closed doors. So yeah, it's it will come within reason. Obviously, St Andrews is only so big, and there is only so much space for outlets and toilets and things like this. But you do get the impression that. Well, you don't get the impression it is. It is happening, isn't it? The people at Knighthead have got open ears, and they are looking to improve the situation, because they do recognise that the supporter experience is a facet of people not coming, albeit not the main facet, which is as you say, results in what's going on the pitch.
Moving on to questions and staying with the same theme to begin with, from John Ramsey. Any thoughts on the ticket incentives? Anything that increases attendance is a good thing. Brian, you've already mentioned that Tom Wagner can't constantly do that, but I do think there is room to have days like that, maybe 2 or 3, potentially even 4 throughout a season, where Blues look to get local schools, colleges, children into the stadium, and also students. There's a massive student group of students in Birmingham that probably haven't been tapped into by any of the football clubs. So it's about getting these people in cheaply, because that's what they want first and foremost. I was a student, you were a student. Once upon a time, you don't want to be spending 30 quid for a ticket, do you? No. So that's first and foremost, and obviously then keeping them with the quality of football. I've been crunching some of the numbers because I think we've both said at times this season the price at St Andrews have been pretty steep for some games. I think back to the Leicester game before Christmas, the Sheffield Wednesday game, and also the Rotherham game. I know Blues did work some initiatives around those fixtures if you combine them. But for the game against Southampton, which is the next home game on March the 2nd or 3rd, is it? So if a 4-person family went to that game, 2 adults, 2 children, and all sit in the Kop, it'll cost them £95. £95, and on top of that, you've got your food, your drink, your transport to the game, potentially a match day programme, which I know doesn't cost a lot, but yeah, still, it's another expense. You're probably talking in excess of 150, getting on for £200. It's an expense that probably not many people are going to commit to on a regular basis. Certainly not, I would say, every 2 weeks in the current climate. So there's got to be more incentives. There's got to be more done, because at the end of the day, if you don't create new fans are going to, die out eventually, aren't they? So you need to kind of focus on the next generation and get them in the building so they can enjoy Birmingham City and stay with Birmingham City, because that's your next generation of fans.
I was talking to Richard Wilford about this the other day, actually. And is there 7 home games left?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, let's say there's 14 matches and half of those are at home. I just wonder if it's worth, and it's probably too short a turnaround to organise it. Would it be worth sort of offering, a 7-game end of season ticket for 140 quid at 20 quid a pop or something like, just something like that, just to retain what felt like a bit of momentum that started on Saturday. It would be unfortunate just to see it drop back down to to 19,000, 20,000 again against Southampton because of the prices. So yeah, a lot of creativity and thinking outside the box is needed. I suppose the other point to make about this from the fans' point of view as well, really, is if you want a better product on the pitch, you're probably going to have to pay for it, aren't you, as well? United have spoken quite a lot about increasing the revenue to improve the FFP balance. And unfortunately, that revenue comes out of supporters' pockets, doesn't it? And that's not me saying, yes, every game should be 32 quid, just, for a any part of the ground. It needs to be better value than that. But, unfortunately, the increase in revenue, the people that are providing that revenue is fans. And I think, to be fair, Blues fans will respond to that. If they think it's worth paying for. You've got to remember that they're coming from a decade of, why would you give your hard-earned money to the two previous ownership groups? You just wouldn't, would you? And I totally understand that.
Yeah, they're going to be the hardest people to get back. The people who've stayed away because of the results and because of the rubbish football over the last 10, 12 years since the Carling Cup win, really. So yeah, that's going to be a huge challenge for Knighthead to work that one out and find a price point that appeals to everyone, really, that everyone can meet. Season tickets will be a very interesting thing. They're going to come out probably, most clubs release that kind of information about March, April time, ready for the early bird. So that's going to be interesting because maybe some people, then again, that one lump sum, some people may look at it and think, oh, if I'm going to save myself 300-400 quid over a season, I'll go for it. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who can't afford in this, especially in today's financial climate, to lash out, £500, £500 in one fell swoop. So I do hope they find some common ground on the price point that doesn't price people out, because at the end of the day, we all want full St Andrews, don't we?
Yeah, it's very difficult as well because, Club Blues and all clubs, they have to look after their season ticket holders, don't they? They have to make sure it's worth their while to make that financial commitment in the summer, or, albeit maybe spread over instalments or whatever way. But you need to preserve the value for to those season ticket holders, because if you fork out 450 quid on the season ticket, then every third week there's a kids for a quid and an offer, then why would you? It's such a difficult balance. It's going to take someone far more sort of au fait with these with these dynamics than us pair. But yeah, it's you are right. It will be very interesting to see what happens with the season ticket prices. They were frozen for many years, and you could go, well, so they should be. But yeah. I wouldn't want to speculate about what's going to happen in the summer, but interesting is probably a good word to use.
Moving on to Oliver Newman. Any chance of any free transfer signings, especially in the striker department? Or if not, any chance of Dixon getting brought up to the first team anytime soon? Honestly, I think Julie Dixon is the player that gets the most mentions on this podcast. He seems to be on every week. Should we answer that? I'll quickly answer the second part of that question. I don't see Dixon getting many chances now, especially before the end of the season. In the last few games, potentially, if he continues to do very well for the 21s and the first team coaching staff take notice, then potentially. But Blues are so well stocked, even in those forward positions, they are really well stocked, and there are players that Mowbray can't even get in the squad, like Oliver Burke, Manny Lungello, Gary Gardner's not getting any kind of minutes. Experienced players that have been ahead of Dickinson in the pecking order. So I think you're probably looking at next season, if Dixon is going to break into the first team or potentially go on loan. I can't see it happening this season now. Not now the FA Cup games have gone.
Yeah, just not quite sure what Oliver means. Does he mean? Do we think he means a chance of a free transfer signing before the end of the season?
Yeah, I think so. Free agents, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not going to happen, is it? On the basis that if a striker has been without a club this far into the season, then they're probably, with the best will in the world, they're going to take a month or 6 weeks to get up to speed, aren't they? By which time, half of the remainder of the season is over. As you say, there are other options, and the options that are out there as free agents aren't particularly great ones. So, no, that's not going to happen. I mean, yes, I suppose implicit in Oliver's point is the fact that we all desperately want Blues to have a 20-goal a season striker, and goals are coming at the moment, aren't they? From all over the team. Bakuna's got has Bakuna got 7?
7, yeah. James
Stansfield 9. James 7. Miyoshi's probably on, what is he on, 4 or 5 now?
5. Yeah.
So the goals are coming. They're not abundant, but they are coming, and I feel at this stage, they're coming in sufficient enough quantities to get Blues over the line for this season. They'll make a proper informed judgment from whatever free agents that have been released by clubs at the end of this season that have been playing regularly, or having done some scouting from South Korea again, or so we know the scouting network is far wider, or having a look at potential more loan players from Premier League clubs as well. So yeah, not something that's going to be addressed now. Absolutely not.
Next one from James. What would your main positions you'd want to strengthen be, and what players could we get to fulfill that? I think we're probably both going to struggle to name names at this point. We have in previous podcasts named a player we'd like to sign or whatever, but I think we're both going to struggle with names because there'll be so many in the summer, so many positions that Blues need to strengthen. But Brian, the main position you'd like Blues to strengthen?
Well, it's goalkeeper, isn't it? Goalkeeper and strikers, because at the end of the season, there'll be no goalkeepers under contract, and am I right in saying no strikers? Hogan's up, Djukovic is up, Stansfield will go back. That about covers it, doesn't it?
If you count Tyler Roberts as a striker, then potentially, but
yeah,
probably not,
okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, goalkeeper and strikers, isn't it? Is the answer to that one? I've waxed lyrical about Sinclair Armstrong here, which is just me dreaming, rather than anyone saying to me that anyone there's been any contact or anything like that. I think he's got potential. I quite like Bailey Kedamatri at Sheffield Wednesday as well. I think he's a young man with a lot of upside. There'll be some sort of the more prolific lower league players that will come across Blues radar. Stansfield would be the obvious one you'd love to see back, even on a second loan, wouldn't you? So just a few names there, and I do think Bluesnet will be wider than it's been for many years in terms of scouting for strikers. But absolutely, they need 2 goalkeepers and 2 strikers if Tony Mowbray wants to go that way. And we've seen his sides do well without a recognised striker at Sunderland. But clearly, his Blackburn team had 2 or 3 very good strikers, didn't they? Adam Armstrong and Ben Brereton Diaz as well. So it'll be very much a case of what Mowbray wants. What would you say?
I know. I'm just on the subject of Sheffield Wednesday strikers. I like Dugbo. I thought he was quite good, to be honest. 2 goals against Blues. He could have had a couple more.
I was going to say he missed a few though, didn't he?
Yeah. He looked like he had very good physical attributes, especially, and came in well off the right hand side when he moved there second half. But there are a lot of players in this league that I'd love Blues to sign. The thing is with Mowbray, the areas we think Blues may need to strengthen, he probably thinks something completely different. Like we looked at January, didn't we, a lot of us, and thought, oh, maybe Blues can strengthen in the spine, thinking defence, midfield and striker. Mowbray just thought purely midfield, 3 midfielders. So, he'll have his own ideas. Midfield probably doesn't need a lot of strengthening in the summer, given that they could, if they can go and sign Dazelle on a permanent deal, they'll have Peck already. There's your midfield there, depending on what happens with Ivan Sunjic, and obviously, Jordan James will be a bit of a saga, I'd imagine, in the summer as well. So, for me, a striker and a goalkeeper, like you said, I would like to see a ball-playing left-side centre-back. We've spoken about passing lines before, but I do think having a left-footed centre-back in the modern game is quite important, especially if you're going to play the way that Mowbray wants to play with Blues, and in terms of playing out from the back. I think a left-footed centre-back would be a really shrewd addition. But then again, there aren't that many top left-footed centre-backs in the Championship, are there? So,
no.
So, yeah.
They do tend to. Yeah, I wonder if Austin Trusty feels like he's had enough of the Premier League and he's hankering for a return home. What did you make of James Beadle, the Wednesday goalkeeper? He was a lad that Blues were connected with, weren't they? Albeit quite tentatively in the last transfer window. I was reasonably impressed, to be fair. Just to say, he's a young lad. He's on loan from Brighton. Brighton, I think, have given him a new contract. Is that right? And so Blues aren't I don't think Blues are buying James Beadle from Brighton. But what about him as a young lone goalkeeper? Does that make you uneasy? The fact your goalkeeper's a loanee. What would you say? Is he not good enough? Don't know. Thoughts about him?
No, Sarkic kept loads of clean sheets of Blues while he was on loan, didn't he? Did very well. So that bit wouldn't put me off. I really liked him. I thought he was very comfortable with the ball at his feet. Played out probably a little bit too much in the first half at times, but a decent size, decent presence for someone I think who's only 19 still. Made some good saves. I don't think Blues worked him anywhere near as much as they should have that night. But he looked quite a good goalkeeper. Another Brighton goalkeeper I like is Carl Rushworth, who's at Swansea. I think he's a really good player. I know he made some mistakes early on in the season and won against Blues back on the opening day, but I think he's a really good goalkeeper, and he's obviously come good for them this season.
He really does play it from the back, doesn't he?
He really does. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. From his own goal line, yeah.
That's clearly the way Brighton want their goalkeepers to play. But yeah, he's a very good player. A lone goalkeeper wouldn't put me off. I'd be quite happy for Blues to go down that route. But I think you need an experienced guy next to him, a John Ruddy or something like that. The goalkeeping department's going to be really interesting this summer because it's going to be a complete makeover by the sounds of it. Moving on to the last question from Dave Pugh. Wishing Tony all the best and a speedy recovery. Early days, but how do you think the players will react to a fourth, albeit temporary, manager this season? Hope Mark Venus can keep the spirit Tony generated in the group. Keep right on. Obviously, we don't know at the moment, how the players are reacted. It'll be, I think, the thing that I will take away from it. I think the Mowbray's personality is going to be a huge miss. In and around the training ground, we know what a vocal presence and a positive presence he can be around there. So that's going to be a big miss. He'll still obviously be in communication with Mark Venus and talking about things. So he'll still have him to lean on. You'd hope, like I said earlier, it wouldn't have a big impact. And as Brian pointed out, these players have still got to play for Tony Mowbray. They've still got to impress Tony Mowbray. And they've got to, essentially, a lot of them fight for their own futures and make sure they can be part of the Birmingham City squad going into next season when, finishing 15th in the Championship won't be acceptable. Blues will want to be pushing in the top half and pushing to be in and around the playoff mix in the second season. So there's a lot to play for these players over the final 14 games, and I don't think there'll be any excuses from them to not perform, even though Tony Mowbray won't be on the touchline.
Yeah, that also worth pointing out is they are a part of a team that is on an upward trajectory rather than traditionally when you change a manager. The previous, well, certainly the Rooney one when Mowbray came in from Rooney, they were pretty down at heel, weren't they? So this lot have a vision of what of what functional in a Mowbray team looks like. Maybe functional's a bit harsh, but coherent, I suppose, is a better word. What coherent looks like in terms of Mowbray. So that won't leave them. They've seen a vision of something that works and something that they can do and seem reasonably well suited to, albeit not perfect yet. So they can keep that show on the road from that point of view. I'd be optimistic on that front. We're not going to know, are we? Dave is a short answer until we clap eyes on players. What I would say is I've been impressed with Mowbray's substitutions and game management, particularly in the last couple when he sort of opened it up and brought the artists, he likes to call them. He's brought them onto the field and they've proved decisive and created a winner. I wonder if that sort of in-game nuance and feel for the way things are going, I wonder if that is lost to the squad for now. I don't know. I'm absolutely speculating. It's probably wrong of me to do so. It may be that Mowbray will have a line into Venus. I don't know.
On to the takes. We've only got one this week from Mark Powell. After the positive experience of full ground last Saturday, I sincerely hope that the club look at other initiatives to achieve a 25,000 plus crowd. As a long-term season ticket holder, I would rather the club reduce prices than play with the ground only 2/3 full. That fits in with the theme of this podcast. I mean, we have spoken at great length about that, and I agree with that point 100%, Mark. I think most of us, especially between now and the end of the season, would rather see Blues play in front of bigger crowds, even if that means ticket prices are reduced. I completely accept the point Brian made earlier about people who've already bought season tickets might feel a little bit shortchanged if there are initiatives every single week. But I do feel like the next 3 months or 2.5 months left of this season is a real time to build for Blues and create fans for next season, get people on the bandwagon, and hopefully then going into next season when August comes, Blues don't need initiatives to have a 25,000 crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. But if Saturday can be replicated 2 or 3 more times, and Blues stay safe and go into the into the summer, that season ticket sells itself in a way, doesn't it? People who've been buying season tickets for the last few years have been doing it very much out of duty, and I'm absolutely full of admiration for them for that. But if there could be more cachet, as in terms of better product on the field and a better experience off it, then they can do that. If they can do something that improves that for the next few weeks, I would be in favour of that. Yeah, definitely.
100%. I think that's it, Brian. Thank you, as ever, for joining me on the podcast. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Please keep bringing your questions and takes. They make up a huge part of the podcast, and we're very grateful for them. Get well soon to Tony Mowbray. Hopefully, we see him back on a touchline in the very near future. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and keep right on from both of us.